Chat GPT is just a plugin, and you can plug in these large language models and build a tool of your own and start selling it or giving it away, which is great. And I think everyone should implement that in their business. Is like figure out a proprietary tool that you can create or have someone create. That's like a very MVP tool, but think about like the power of that. Now you could say, hey, I have my own AI powered technology, SEO Leverage does, and it's going to help you whatever, like it could decipher like where your existing SEO is now and what's lacking, for instance. And you can have Chat GPT help with some of that.
Welcome back to SEOleverage.com. Gert Mellach here, and I'm very pleased to have a special guest back on the show, Joe Fier, almost the regular here. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you, Gert. It's good to be back here. Yeah, it does feel regular, man. And same with you on my podcast, Hustle and Flowchart.
I definitely love chatting with you. I always make a lot of notes and then try the stuff that you suggest. Just for this show, I tried one hack or little trick you recommended last time, I think, where you said you can kind of use the Chat GPT app on the phone and dictate some thoughts, and it kind of structures it and brings up some questions. I tried this 4 times today with different use cases, and I'm completely convinced this was perfect. It wrote an outline. It wrote an outline for me. It made the bullet points for this podcast recording. It formulated some questions that come out of my thoughts. So I'm completely sold and definitely appreciate it whenever you share some things like those with us.
Right on, man. Do you want to walk through like what that is so you could share? Because I think it would be something fun now that you've done it, and you can kind of, if you're open to it, maybe it sets the stage, because I think others can try it out, because it's so useful for so many.
No, absolutely. Things, absolutely. Pretty much what you suggested was pretty much installing this Chat GPT app on my iPhone. And I just open it up, log in, hit record. And then I was pretty much just talking about, I'm going to have someone on the podcast, and we're talking about AI tools today. And this guy knows a lot about AI, has a lot of experience. I always wonder what the use cases could be and how we can actually have some practical examples. And I was just probably talking for 3 minutes. And then I tap this button where you stop recording, and it pretty much puts in the entire transcript into the prompt box. And then at the end, what I said, now take all this and now give me bullet points and questions for the podcast episode. And that was it. And then I think 80% of what came out was perfect preparation for the podcast, because it kind of framed the entire questions from what I think is important in this case, or what I at least want to bring across. And I also did it for an outline. We're publishing an ebook on reputation soon on the website. And I just created this outline based on 5 minutes of what I think about online reputation management, what people should take into account. Now I take all this and create an outline for my ebook, right? So now I just fill in the blanks, and I still do the writing, but it's all my thoughts. And this is what I also told a client today who we work with SEO. I'm like, we always had a really hard time extracting information from our clients that we can then use actually and have a usable format. And this is now really, really easy, because I just use their course material, their recorded podcast, whatever. We put this in, we restructured information. So what I really most like about ChatGPT isn't so much creating the content, but it's the structuring of masses of content we could never work through. What are your views of this?
Bingo. Yeah. Nailed it, man. So there's 3 of these large language model tools I use, but they have 3 different purposes. And like you just said, ChatGPT is this way where I can structure my thoughts and structure just almost like a messy bunch of thoughts. I mean, it could be rambling, or it could be existing outlines, or maybe some content I'm sitting on that I want to put into an outline or a presentation, or an episode like we're doing here, where there's like a rundown and structure. So ChatGPT, especially with the GPT-4 tab, because I think you need to have that as the paid user to also use the app. You need that, but it has this just great reasoning of where it can apply our own voice and what we find is important through our ramblings. It picks up on all those things. And it distills it into this flow where, because I've outlined books as well. I've outlined my training course, the session I'm doing today to my cohort at the program. I mean, a lot of what I do, I always pass it through Chat GPT because it's just going to make it way easier to consume for other people, but also for me to deliver content that's still in my voice. Yeah, that's definitely the use case there. And I have
Absolutely.
a couple others that,
Yeah,
yeah,
really. I was going to
yeah. Well,
tell a story. We had this client
yeah,
who's an architect in California, and I'm very interested in architecture, but on a very low experience level. So I can slightly
yeah.
relate to the content he's putting out. And it used to be we worked with him a few years ago already, and then he did something else, and now he came back. And it was really hard back then for us. It was so hard because we started researching and we always drifted off. He would give us some bullet points, but then we did additional research. And now we just said, okay, now we're going to do this in a very different way. And he just points us to videos he likes and supports, and things are accurate. And he sends us his courses. He has a course and just send us this transcripts, raw transcripts. We just plug this in and say, okay, prepare this, give me bullet points for an article, give me bullet points for a summary. Let's extract like a text for a service page for his website and stuff like that. So we just really have this feeling that you use this raw material, and this is really his material. This doesn't require my research. It doesn't require my knowledge of what I should and shouldn't include in the research, because it's all based on his experience and he knows what he's talking about. So for us as an SEO agency, done for you services got much easier this way. And this is what I now like about it. It's actually finally, I would say, a real use case. Because so far we have been playing a lot, but there was like, for me, there was always a lack of real use cases where we have something that actually now works better than before.
So what I would do in that scenario because I love it, like with what you just described is exactly what I've been doing for myself to package up what I do with my podcast, my marketing and media and PR, basically all the marketing. I do it through my podcast, and I've done that for years, 7 years. We talked about that on Hustle and Flowchart, and I can run all that through Chat GPT is one of them. But the other tool I like to use now that has a bigger data set that you can load in is Claude.ai, Claude. And that will allow, and that's Anthropic, it's backed by Google. So it's a different large language model. This is a second of those three that I was mentioning. And Claude is great for what you're talking about, is like, hey, let's get the raw data, the videos. If you don't have the transcripts, there's a lot of tools to transcribe things these days for very cheap. Chat GPT is just one of them, as you just saw. But there's more streamlined ways to take raw data, get transcripts, get like these things that you can extract that are actionable from those in the wording of the original content. And like Claude.ai is a great one to, you just put all that text in there and essentially you load it up. And what I like to do is, whatever you're trying to get, like, okay, what are the action points, like the takeaways from whatever you loaded up? You can categorize things, like really get honed in. You could start writing about page, all these pages you mentioned for your website based off of content that's already been written in someone's voice. And yeah, it just shortcuts. Like if you have a structure of what you want to produce, like it lights me up and I'm happy you're seeing this. And like, because now done for you can be scalable in a very big way, as long as you have a workflow of injecting their content, but then also piping it through something like Claude. Another one is Castmagic, which is, we can go into that in a little bit, but like now you have these outputs that you're like, wow, like you can just spin them out in a matter of minutes, as long as you have a workflow and you know what you want to get out of it.
Exactly. An interesting point about all those tools. I think Castmagic, you mentioned it on a past show, and we also checked it out. I even recommended it to a client after you pointed out here, because it was just seemed like the perfect fit for them. An interesting one really is, how should a company these days actually deal with this flood of different tools? I mean, I know you work with clients and obviously match the requirements to the best AI tools you know of, but we also know that I think since ChatGPT, there were like literally thousands of AI tools coming out. So, and we also, everybody having a team, we have around 30 people right here. We know it takes a while to get the team familiar with the tools, make sure they use them, and then they might just know how to use it. Now there's a different one. It happened to us 3 times in the last few months with a writing tool. We always switched for the better option. And it's not a problem. We want to have the best tool and we want everybody to use it and leverage it for our clients, obviously. But it's kind of overwhelming. So I feel like a lot of people have stepped away a little bit from AI because they don't really see how to do this, how to handle it, how to train the team, what to use, what not to use. How do you see this?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Great question, because this whole year has been a boom of new tools. And that's why, my old partner, Matt Wolf, has futuretools.io. That's a great place to stay connected. I always got to shout out my brother from another mother. Yeah. So it's great. And so that's where he's made his whole business on this boom. And rightly so. Someone needs to decipher what are the tools that are great and what are the ones that are like rehashes from things that are already made, or maybe they're like a feature that are already built into a bigger set of tools, or maybe there's something free. This is the stuff I hear from him. I was just hanging out with him the other day, and he was like, yeah, there's just so many copycats and there's so many tools now that came out this year but are already defunct because something else has that tool built or that feature built in, whatever it might be. And I've heard predictions is like really up until maybe October, November this year. That's like going to be maybe the peak of the boom, or more towards like where it starts to slow down, where things mature a little bit, because I think that's necessary for any market. But right now it's been like experiment after experiment, no code tools, like basically anyone can build a tool right now. And that's the issue. Like I wanted to just preface that is like, there's so many ways that we could just pick up like bubble.io or there's a few others that are escaping me right now, but Chat GPT is just a plugin, and you can plug in these large language models and build a tool of your own and start selling it or giving it away, which is great. And I think everyone should implement that in their business, is like figure out a proprietary tool that you can create or have someone create. That's like a very MVP tool, but think about like the power of that. Now you could say, hey, I have my own AI powered technology, SEO Leverage does, and it's going to help you, whatever, like it could decipher like where your existing SEO is now and what's lacking, for instance. And you can have Chat GPT help with some of that. And, it could be paid for clients. Getting off point there, but I get excited because there's great opportunity in tools, but when you're trying to train a team to solve a specific problem, I would start with like, what's the end game? Where are you trying to go with this whole thing? It's SEO services, like what you're doing. You've been doing it for a long time. You know what the end game is there. That probably doesn't change for your clients, make more money, get more leads, obviously ROI from the services that they're paying for you and all that. And you have strategies to get there. So with that in mind, really start thinking about what are the key actions that you want to automate, delegate, maybe kill. Like there's a whole process of like looking through during the journey. How can I optimize things? And I think saving prompts, things that work really well, like what you were experimenting with Chat GPT and different frameworks and almost like workflows. If you can identify those along that customer journey where your team's executing and all these things, figure out almost like broadly without the tool name in mind, but figure out like what's that process kind of look like. So you can then start inserting a tool with prompts that help during that specific, vertical or that part of the process. Does that kind of make sense so far?
Absolutely. And it's cool. Actually, I think one of the issues, and this is why I think the market is going to be cleaned up. I mean, these are obviously slowing down, but I think there's going to be a cleanup, is because I believe the tools have one issue, in my personal opinion. They're too broad. Right now, everybody you can do a lot of things with. Imagine you have something like ChatGPT that just does one thing, right? And it just does one thing really, really well, which is sort your thoughts, right? And you have an app that helps you structure your thoughts. And if you have a tool associated to one particular use case, everybody can relate to this. I have so many ideas about this. I don't know where to start. I don't know how to start this book. I don't know how to write this play. I don't know where to start this project, for example. If there was a tool for a narrow use case, I think it would be easier for people to turn. So, okay, now I know I have this use case. This is one tool that's only doing this. It's not doing anything else. Yeah. And it would be much easier to plug this into the team, in team structure or the company and say, hey, look, remember, this is the task we usually do this way. Now we do it that way because this exact use case used to take us 4 hours. Now it's taking us 5 minutes. And now we can know this is the go-to tool for this particular use case. But whatever AI tool you open up, be it for writing, be it for anything else, does everything. And then we have plugins that does even more. Mm-hmm. So I feel like people are really overwhelmed. It wouldn't need to be so powerful to actually work.
Yeah, you're right. And this is why it's so where I get excited now with how easy it is to build tools. And man, but I know Bubble.io is one example of like a no code tool. And because you're exactly right. Everything has started kind of broad and it's great. They're almost like a bunch of use cases. And we now get to, as smart business owners, entrepreneurs is, well, cool. How do I maybe take some of this technology that's built already in these concepts that we know are pretty game changing, but yeah, they're confusing. They're too wide. People get confused, so they don't know where it fits in with the workflow. Because that's what I'm noticing is same thing. Like I speak about podcasting primarily and how that's essentially, it could be your marketing when done right with the right set of tools, workflows, and consistency. It's really with any business, of course, but yeah, it's people get hung up on the tools and it's like, which tool? And then like, how do I do this without spending all my time and money or my team's time and their, hours, all that, resources. So yeah, this is the issue, I think. So SEO should have a suite of tools, that either you have proprietary or are sold to SEO agencies, and I don't know if that's like an Ahrefs or something like that does that. Probably. It'd be smart.
I'm interested in how much Ahrefs specifically is going to go down the AI route because they would have the data to back it up and get some really good results. So I'm definitely curious about that one. I want to look into a little bit into online marketing in general and maybe some specific use cases that you are seeing where say, hey, this is now something that with AI works in a much different way. I mean, you already mentioned Castmagic. I don't know if you want to briefly summarize what this kind of use case this would be really good for if somebody wants to look into it.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I'll start with Castmagic. I just interviewed the partnerships, head of partnerships, and I've chatted with the founder now, or one of the co-founders, and what they're doing is it's kind of what you're suggesting. But they're still broad. It's still broad right now to cater to a bigger market. But so Castmagic, in a nutshell, is you upload some kind of audio or video of whatever sort. So they started with podcasting, but you could do this as if you're a creator on YouTube, YouTube videos. You could do this with coaching calls, webinars, meetings, live events. If you have all this recorded footage, now you can load it into here. And what it does is it transcribes everything pretty instantly. Like now it's like you can transcribe an hour in like a minute or 30 seconds. It's wild. And it's cheap. So, in Castmagic, you can try this for free I think it's like 1 or 2 of these. You can run your content and see how it works. I'd highly recommend it. And so after it's transcribed, you can mark the speakers really easily. So it identifies who's talking and you can load up if it's one person to like 10, 20, whatever. And essentially it starts to create all these AI outputs. So it comes preset with things like the key takeaways of this piece of content, the description, the tweets or the X's, I don't know, whatever we're calling them now. LinkedIn posts, reels, it'll actually timestamp and pull out the quotes that you can use for quote cards or maybe repurpose reels. Then there's like almost like a Chat GPT chat, call it Magic Chat. So you can prompt it and say, give me 10 titles, let's say, that are engaging or clickbaity or whatever. You can prompt it on anything and it's going to pull from the transcript that you just loaded up. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. But just think like the use cases now as a podcaster, you have all this output on the post-production side that, show notes, for instance, like I've shared with you this prompt that I have, and this is where it's the power of prompts, like Chat GPT prompts. I have loaded a custom prompt into Castmagic that's based off of your structure, Gert, of show notes pages,
Right.
and I've shared that with you. And it's still a work in progress because I'm putting my own style to the SEO structure that I know well. So why wouldn't I copy the structure and then I'm layering in my own voice and stuff into it?
Awesome. Now this is amazing. And what about the audio version? Is there anything out there with AI already that helps with the audio optimization?
It does. So I've been finally obsessing over Descript again. So this is an app. It's been around for a while, but the AI elements within there, we were joking about how, AI eventually will have you turn your head and stuff because I had a different camera on. Well, it's like that tool will adjust your eyeballs to, like, I'm looking at you right now in Zoom on my screen, but it'll adjust up just slightly to the camera. If I or you throw this recording into Descript, it's going to transcribe it immediately. And then there's like one selection. It goes eyeballs to camera. And it's kind of creepy. But the technology's there and it looks natural. So
this is amazing.
Descript, I'll just like quickly nerd out really fast because Descript, if you're doing any kind of recording, and now I think Squadcast, they just acquired them, so you can actually do interviews directly through there now. I think video and audio. But if you're just recording yourself, let's say a solo episode, audio, video as well, screen capture, you can do it all right there in Descript. And what it's going to do is transcribe as you're recording. And then immediately right after that, within the same app, you can start editing based off of your words. So you can visually see when you said or ah or something like, check microphone 1 2, you can cut all that out just by click, drag, delete. And it's going to also gives you a timeline view, but who wants that when you can just look at the words and just cut out fillers. You have buttons to delete all this stuff. I mean, it's pretty wild. When I started, I'm like, why haven't I been using this? Where I could just record directly with a few clicks. I have a very clean sounding audio or video if I'm set up for it. And then you slap in all your show brandings. There's templates you can export into reels and subtitle things. It templatizes the production process, I would say, within that app. And that it then integrates with other things. Yeah.
But you still need to kind of look for those places and do the tweaking, etc. There's nothing like remove all the arms and pauses and stuff like that, right? You kind of need to.
Yeah. Well, that's all with a couple clicks.
Right. Awesome. Awesome.
Yep.
I do remember Descript, but I think we used it in one of its early versions probably a year ago or a little bit longer. The funny thing was really just to kind of remove a word from the text, and then this audio part that was corresponding to this part of the transcript suddenly was gone. So this was definitely the first time I saw something like that, but I haven't used it for quite a while, so I need to get back to it and see where it is. Awesome.
It's worth it, man. Yeah, and one more, I would say, for the recording. So if you're going to do some guesting type interviews, I've now moved from Zoom to Riverside.fm. I used to use Riverside years ago when Matt and I co-hosted the show. I've gone back now because I feel like it's worked a lot of kinks out. And there's a couple of tools like Squadcast is one of them, but Riverside.fm is essentially, it's kind of set up like Zoom, but it records from your side. So as the presenter or the guest, basically each side, it's going to upload simultaneously the best audio and video. So if there's any choppiness or any internet issues, that's not even a fret anymore. It's not a worry. What it does, and this is where it gets kind of cool now, is they're all rolling out these AI features. So you can actually edit right there, right inside of Riverside, and have kind of a decent video or even audio version. You can do minor editing right there. So you don't need a separate editor. You just wanted to do this quickly. You can edit by text now, even in there. And you can create reels. So it actually, with like one click, it'll source like 10 different reels or these like little segments from your content right after you finish your video. Yeah, with the person, that's immediately what I do is like make magic clips and then comes out with these. They're not perfect, but now you can click into one. It's sourced a part, and now with the text, you can start to piece together like a 60-second, 90-second reel that doesn't take more than maybe 5 minutes to do. And you probably are kind of fresh, or you can send this to a team member and do it.
Right.
And then now you can go post that on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and immediately exposure from not that much work. So that's like an example workflow right there.
I mean, this is amazing. I mean, not everybody has the structure or infrastructure right now in place to like edit a podcast. Maybe some people don't even start a podcast because they can't wrap their head around everything you should be doing with the reels and with the audio snippets and editing and transcribing and all that stuff. We have been doing this for a long, not as long as you, obviously, but still for a while with at least one, sometimes two people involved into the entire production process and then making those snippets and everything. Maybe they were used Canva before for those snippets, then for those quotes, and had somebody then go log into WordPress and copying and pasting the content in and tweaking it there, etc. So just looking back at the history of where this was and where it is right now, and this is one person who can do this probably at the side rather than full time. It's definitely a huge efficiency gain. So this is where we see definitely everything related to content seems to be huge right now in efficiency, and definitely a use case we can clearly see AI is helping. What about visuals and images? What's the status there of AI right now? We're recording this in September 2023, by the way. Maybe in 6 months, we're just laughing about this episode where this was. What's the status right now?
Probably. Yeah, no, that's just the state of how we live these days.
Yep.
The status right now, I would say when it comes to visuals, I love Canva. I love Canva for the fact that you can do pretty much any visual thing that you can think of, all the way from a basic graphic to animation to full-on video. And they just have everything in there as a suite that you can pull from. And I love that. I mean, that's like the base of where we create all of our visual assets initially. And there's ways you can even like, you can populate so many of these. If you have templates, let's just say, like I always recommend, like start with your core templates, your episode titles or whatever image you want to use for your blog post. Have that all in Canva at minimum. But then think of all the split off assets that you can use, or you can do for that piece of content. So quote cards, maybe a guest if you have one, you kind of highlight them a little more. Animations, all that stuff can be done in Canva, and there's ways to pre-populate and crank out like 20 of these in one go. If you have, like if you upload like a spreadsheet of content, then it can populate it into those assets. That gets a little tricky, but doable. Yeah. Headliner is one of them. Is a tool that I see visually. It'll help with, especially with audio and video content. Mm-hmm. And I know that integrates with a lot of things. I think Descript integrates with it. So you could take your audio you produce in one spot and now pipe it straight over to something like Headliner, which has been around for a while. Like I used to use it years ago, but audiograms, visuals, anything like that that are more animated video like, you can now have that tool essentially create it for you. What else you have? On the visual side, I really do think that's where it's going to come up a lot more in the next few months. Yeah. Because right now, like Castmagic, for instance, I think they have some stuff coming up that's going to be built in. Because right now, a lot of these tools, Castmagic being a big one, is that it produces the post-production assets, but they're not necessarily, it's like the copy of the assets. It's not necessarily the full thing you can post yet.
Right.
So visually, I think, I heard, things are coming with that tool. So I think a lot of these tools are going to just start integrating, kind of like Riverside. Mm-hmm. Like now you can do the whole clips plus subtitles plus like, the whole reel design right there within the tool. So
right.
Yeah, it kind of depends on what you're using. And then you work back like, okay, what's the workflow? Like Descript has a lot of stuff built into it already that you don't really need another tool. Right. So, which is kind of nice. There's like all-in-ones now. You don't have to bounce around so much.
I'm definitely looking forward to having like one tool for the entire process, where it's like I upload my audio file and now let me download all the assets and ideally send them to the guest directly and make sure this gets shared.
Yeah.
Maybe it takes another year or so. And then I'm obviously looking at libraries we have been using for 20 years, probably Shutterstock.com. I'm really curious where those are going, because it's such an essential part of many agencies and advertising in general for such a long time.
True.
I really wonder where they are going if you can just start compiling images. I mean, there are more and more engines. I was playing with this, was this DALL-E, I think. I was playing with DALL-E from OpenAI.
Oh, yeah, DALL-E, yeah.
Generation. Yep. And this was interesting. This was really interesting. I got some really valuable stuff out of there. I see more and more people, speakers, with their slides using AI imagery to have something original, and they have their own prompts to have their own style, etc. So definitely great for creativity. So everything around content creation, I guess, is pretty much covered. What about other aspects of business? Where do you see any other AI use cases that would not only relate to the creation of content?
Yeah. So I guess one more app that I've been starting to use that probably is a little bit of content, but also business or marketing presentations. It's called Gamma.app, Gamma.app. And essentially that is going to help you create not only slides or presentation decks, but I think it's also like docs, anything like brochure type things, but you can upload a whole outline, let's say from Chat GPT or something that you voiced out. It's going to now build these slides for you. And they actually look pretty awesome, and I've started using them a little bit for some of these trainings I'm doing, just to kind of give me a roadmap. And honestly, you just you describe the kind of theme or whatever you want to build or have it build based off of your outline, and you can customize from there using AI. So you don't need to know design skills. It's going to make all these crazy graphs, and then it's easy to present too. That's actually how I presented some training. Didn't even download anything. I just hit the present thing and it looks slick. You can make those into videos, so it's easy to make presentations that way. If you're showcasing your brand, there's really no reason. Like Beautiful.ai is another alternative. I haven't used it in a while, but that's another one that's AI driven slides and visuals.
That's definitely
recommend those, because you can kind of hack them up. Yeah. And then you can make them into, maybe something for your content too.
Exactly. I was just thinking about lead magnets, right? Where you always try to be as specific to the topic as possible on a page, and you have a content upgrade, people opt in for it. Sometimes it used to be really tedious to have like a specific document that's kind of this content plus a little bit more, etc. You can really just piece this together and get this designed with some standard quotes or templates, I guess. So this is where this gets like really manageable then.
It now does. And to your point about visuals, it has all the AI, like you can create AI generated images right within there. Canva has that option now too. So it's like, I think all these tools are just now starting, same with stock photos. Like they're just kind of integrating everything. Descript has a whole library of images, videos, audios. And I don't know if AI generated stuff's in there yet, but I'm sure it's coming. So it's all this stuff, like you said, it's like the next couple months. I think that's where the integrations, because all these companies, they need moats. Like that's the big thing I chat about with Matt at Future Tools is like, it's like you can kind of make anything right now. So it's like how does one tool stand out from another? And like you said, I think a lot of them are going to become all in one or very specialized for a different specific niche or outcome. I think that's the trend that we're going to see.
I saw an interesting beta test right now from voices.com, which is the biggest voiceover site. If you search for voiceover talents, etc., voices.com is a good platform. And what they do is they pretty much clone voice artists. So they kind of still get like the naming, they're still named as like the source of the voice and etc. And they get like paid for a portion of what they usually would get paid. But you can suddenly like have whatever voice artist you want pretty much who signs up for this program, can have them say whatever you type in and just make sure they get their royalties or their payments, etc. and name them in the context of of whatever you're putting out there. But I found it interesting because they have like this ethical approach to AI where they still preserve like something from the original, not like ChatGPT just putting out whatever they want. But really where they say, hey, this is the source. Everybody knows this is the source. The consumer knows, the person listening to this voice afterwards is going to know it by contract. They need to name them. But definitely at a much better price, more efficiently, and obviously more flexible. You could do this at some point with an API dynamically, maybe, and have an API greet a client when they join your program, for example, right? And they suddenly have like a very known voice greeting you. So there's so many possibilities right now. But I found this one really interesting. It's just I saw this morning.
Oh man, that's cool. I haven't known that, but I love the fact that they're still crediting actors, voice actors, and because I know I've hired people on voices.com. They're not cheap. Like voiceover people who are professional are pretty damn expensive. Yeah. And I mean, they know what they're doing, so I'm happy to see that they could still get paid off the AI and them using their likeness. And I think it's super clever. I mean, you're going to see a lot more of that. And I like the tie to humanity still. It's not like cutting the humans out, Gert, I have one more tool. I was
going to ask you,
I don't know
you definitely have more tools on your list.
Yeah, I do. And there's one that, like, for some reason, I don't know why I didn't put it on there, but it's the way that I made a chatbot around all my content. I'm not sure if I talked about this.
I think you had it on a previous chatbot on hustleandflowchart.com, right?
Yeah, it is. So if you go to Hustle and Flowchart, hustleandflowchart.com/bot, B-O-T will get you straight to it. It's totally free. I don't even think you need to opt in, or if you do, it's still free. The whole concept basically is, so the tool that I used is called Withdelphi, Withdelphi. And right now, I think it's a waiting list. So I got in early, months ago, when they were still beta, no followers. I mean, still they have like no followers because the marketing hasn't happened. But I basically reached out to these guys, and Dara, the co-founder, I've become friends with now. I'm helping them on some marketing stuff, partnerships, giving them some ideas on how to market this thing, because they're tech bros. I mean, this is like they're from Silicon Valley and all these, So they're focused on the product, rightly so. They just raised 2.7 million. Like yesterday, they announced it. So it was pretty cool. I just released an episode with him. So it's like, he has Peter Thiel Founders Fund behind these guys. Like, they're backed by big name people. And but saying all that, because there's a lot of these cloning type bots out there. Like, we've seen chat bots. It's like, clone your material, your PDFs and all this. It's like, this is different. So I selected these guys based off of looking at like 10 or 15 of these companies months ago. And they were the only ones that not only can index like podcast episodes, YouTube videos, pretty much any content you can think of that you're sitting on, even like Slack channel messages, like within your team. So like internal stuff, Google Docs and all these things, you can upload that content. What it's going to do is essentially embed that content into their large language models. They use like multiple. So it's better than just using Chat GPT or Claude by itself. And it creates this engaging, interactive experience with your content. So like with the Hustle and Flowchart podcast, I have over 500 episodes in there from all the years. It's every single episode is in there. And now someone can have an engaging conversation with anyone they want from the podcast. And you can kind of start it off with like a problem that you're facing in your business, let's say. So it's like, I'm looking for more better SEO help. I want to increase my my brand reputation online, and I'm sure it'll pull from you in one of our episodes together, and it's going to not only just spit out answers, it actually refines the person's question and makes it interactive and engaging and specific to what you're trying to solve. And that was the piece. Like, it's using natural conversation and logic rather than just telling you what it thinks you need to know.
This is really fascinating.
So that bot, I'm super stoked because there's so many use cases. Like, just imagine how that can become a lead generation bot, a conversion tool for your company. It can also serve your clients. And clone a Gert. So like when you're not available, now you have a Gert bot that's 24/7 SEO questions, whatever you want. It's all preloaded with your content, and
I'm
it's
going
totally
to
free or whatever.
pass on some of my calls to the bot.
Seriously, that's what I mean. Yeah, coaching sessions. I mean, it's pretty wild. Like it even brings your mannerisms into it because it's listening to your voice, or at least it's transcribed and trained. And yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah,
maybe we can tweak my accent a little bit.
Well, to your point, it's because it's all written right now, of course, but it's I chatted with the co-founder, and there's definitely like an integration to 11 Labs, I believe. So to voice out and actually have a audio conversation, it's coming very soon.
Yeah.
So
I'm very much looking forward to it. It's going to be great. And one thing I was playing lately with a little bit was this kind of, I think they call this like agent models or something like this, where you kind of have one agent have like multiple AI interactions. I don't know if you have been playing with this. I tried. Essentially, it was interesting because it kind of went out finding out how this works and then had additional steps executing it. So I did like a Google, we tried to apply it for SEO, and I said, hey, I need to improve this for SEO. And it went out, made a Google search, summarized like the top findings of the top 10 search results, for example, came back, did now apply this to a particular text, etc. Have you had any experience with these agents so far?
I've used it a little bit, and never to the extent that I think it could do. But I think so. Auto GPT is I think one of those, or like the first iteration. And I know and I don't have it in front of me, but I know there's different.
I was playing.
Now it's like the whole interface essentially does that.
I was playing with one that was called Auto Runner, I think. And this was
Auto Runner. Okay.
I think it was Auto Runner or something like that. I can link it in the show notes. No, Agent Runner. Sorry, Agent Runner. And this was a very simple interface, actually too simple for me. Could be a little bit more, explain a little bit more details. But essentially what I liked about it was that you kind of create your different bots, and you can upload kind of information there. So I would have an SEO bot, and it would upload all my podcast episodes and interviews and a lot of my material, my Slack chat, for example, and stuff like that into it. And it would use this as the main data source, and then maybe also go out and research somewhere else. But where I see really the power is to have like train those bots over time, and say, okay, I have my one bot that's my image creation, and after a while this knows how I want to have my images, and I have this other one that knows how I want to write my text, and there's this other one that knows as much SEO as I have produced and put out there into the world. I think this is definitely what excites me the most. I haven't yet played with Auto GPT, but I will, because it seems like to go into this direction.
And this is, and there's a lot of these types of autonomous, like basically AI agents. Yeah, you train them on a set of content, a library that you wouldn't really be able to do with Chat GPT standalone, because the amount of tokens and data, it just will start forgetting what you were talking about. So and I'm actually in this point now where I'm noticing, okay, I'm like really having these long conversations. I have it's interesting. Like I've been taking all these different tools to the max, and it's been working. But it's like if you have a repetitive process now with like content, show notes, for instance, or any deliverable you're trying to do, maybe for a client, it's like, well, work them through your frameworks, work them through your best practices, like have all that stuff set and trained, where you can now run a process or a new scenario through, and you essentially have an output that is structured to your IP right then and there. And it's like 80% of the work is just done like that.
Yeah.
So Agent Runner looks super simple compared to some of these other ones I've used. But I would go to future tool, and this is like literally probably what I'm going to do after this call, because I want to refine more of the agent thing, because it's more of a technical way of looking at it. So it's like once you establish and goes back to your initial question, I think it was about like all these different tools. Like figure out what are the use cases or the things that you really want to accomplish, where you're going, what's your goal, and then have some of these prompts that you feel like are getting you pretty close to and output that you want for each stage. So then you can take those prompts. It's almost like create your own library of prompts that you use often. And you can take them to something like Agent Runner.ai, and test them out there, or any other tool that allows you to put a prompt in there.
Yeah. It's fascinating. I think we could probably nerd out for another hour. I don't want to keep you too long here. Definitely. I imagine you do this AI consulting also for clients. I mean, I know you do.
Yeah.
Best place to get a hold of you, apart from listening to the other shows and get some more experience from you.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Gert. And yes, AI, I can nerd out on this, and it's all very specialized. So I'm happy to chat with anyone who has a light bulb moment during this conversation. Doesn't have to just be around podcasting, because I teach a lot about podcasting. I mentioned that. Either way, two ways to get a hold of me is go to hustleandflowchart.com/SEO leverage. And that's a way to at least get a checklist plus a whole email series on how I see podcasting and really marketing and content, and leveraging tools like this and other frameworks. But if maybe the podcasting thing isn't the thing for you, just still opt in there to at least see what I'm sharing, because you'll get you'll see the Gert episodes we're sharing. But also reach out to me personally. So my email, joe@hustleandflowchart.com. Email me, tell me you listened, and I'm happy to gift you a free session. We can hop on a call and essentially walk through what your scenario looks like. And because I do have frameworks for all these things. So really establishing where you're at right now, what's working, where do you want to go? And we could talk that through. And if you want to talk some podcast stuff and content, that's just natural. I have a whole 6-pillar framework thing that I can walk you through. And yeah, so reach out, joe@hustleandflowchart.com.
Awesome. I definitely appreciate it. This is really generous. I definitely have been seeing the value firsthand so far, and appreciate everything you've been sharing with me, and also my team is already implementing some of this stuff. And I definitely see this value. We have the flip on the flip side of SEO, where if you're in there every single day and you're testing the tools and you're tweaking the processes, etc., there's just no way that somebody can get up to speed and really find the best tool for their case. And just working with somebody who can analyze the situation and has a good idea about what's out there in the market, what's trustworthy, what's maybe just a copycat of something else, etc., is just so valuable. And this is where I'm sure some people listening to this will reach out and say, hey, we have the situation, podcasting or not podcasting, but is there anything that you can do based on your experience for us where we can work more efficiently? Because ultimately everybody hears about AI, but hardly anybody tells me, hey, we are now doing this much faster than before, apart from maybe generating some emails or something like this that you hear people say. But hardly anybody really talks about specific use cases that are now much more efficient. There's definitely plenty of them. So thank you very much, Joe. Thank you so much for taking the time. I'm sure we will have another chat to nerd out a little bit. Apologies for everybody who got a little bit bored with all the technical stuff this time, but sometimes we just need to really nerd out a little bit as well. We are going to have all the notes and links to Joe's email and website, hustleandflowchart.com, over at seoleverage.com/podcast. This is episode 120. Find it there. If you need anything in terms of SEO, because you're covered with AI, reach out to seoleverage.com. Thank you so much. Thanks to Joe.
Thank you.